Within the Phantom Menace novelization, Qui-Gon Jinn is described as one of the best lightsaber duelists within the Jedi Order, having survived numerous battles and successfully testing his skills. One might think that these skills, combined with those of his apprentice Obi-Wan, would be enough to provide him with an opportunity to emerge victorious in his duel with the Sith Lord Darth Maul. However, as we'll see through the novelization, it's clear that Qui-Gon had met his match in Maul, and in today's video, I want to describe the thoughts Obi-Wan had as the duel neared its end, and explain why he did not want Qui-Gon dueling Maul by himself, recognizing completely the danger Qui-Gon was in due to Maul's skills in lightsaber combat and a strategy utilized by the Sith Lord. In the Episode 1 novelization, it's revealed that when it came to training with a lightsaber, Qui-Gon and Darth Maul were relatively equally matched, with an advantage going to Qui-Gon in regard to his experience and the way he was able to understand how an opponent might utilize a lightsaber against him. However, any potential advantages obtained by Qui-Gon likely ended there. While Qui-Gon was at a point where his strength was beginning to diminish, this wasn't true of Maul, and in fact, the Sith Lord's powers are described as being at their peak, his abilities able to ensure that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were never able to adequately go on the offensive against him. Maul had trained his entire life for the moment he found himself in, completely prepared to duel a Jedi in lightsaber combat. However, there was another important element to the duel seen in Episode 1 that went beyond Maul's lightsaber abilities. The novelization explains that Maul was driven by his anger, fury, and disdain for the Jedi Order, the enemies of the Sith for millennia, making Maul's duel against two Jedi instead of one not a disadvantage, but a welcomed opportunity. Maul had no doubt he would win, and his lack of doubt resulted in him having no fear for himself in the duel. But while Maul was bolstered by his rage in this way, Qui-Gon also recognized something else about the Sith Lord that was clear. He was completely focused. Despite the advantage in numbers, the novelization does a great job of explaining how difficult the duel against Darth Maul was for the two Jedi, explaining that the best efforts of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan weren't enough not just to defeat Maul early in the duel, but to even gain an advantage through their counterattacks. Without question, despite how it may have appeared, it was Maul who controlled the duel, using his agility and dexterity to both defend himself against the two Jedi and also constantly look for an opening to end the duel. These circumstances described within the Episode 1 novelization were recognized by Obi-Wan, particularly once he was separated from Qui-Gon and had time to think about the duel itself. At this point in the duel, the novelization makes it clear that Obi-Wan was worried, something he had to admit to himself, recognizing that Darth Maul should have been defeated by that time in the duel. Obi-Wan understood that Maul was unlike any other opponent he had encountered before, seeing exactly what we described previously, that Maul was well trained and experienced in lightsaber combat. Even more, Obi-Wan was aware of the fact that Maul had matched them blow for blow up to that point, and the Jedi were no closer to victory than they had been at the start of the duel. All of this was concerning for Obi-Wan as he was cut off from the duel between Qui-Gon and Maul, and demonstrating that Obi-Wan wasn't confident that Qui-Gon could defeat Maul, the novelization expressly points out that Obi-Wan did not want Qui-Gon dueling the Sith Lord alone. But there was something else that troubled Obi-Wan that's important for our video here, something that Obi-Wan noticed while Qui-Gon took the time to meditate during the duel. Qui-Gon was growing weary, pushed to exhaustion through the efforts of Maul. For Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon was the best lightsaber duelist he'd ever seen, but he also had to admit that Qui-Gon was starting to demonstrate the effects of his getting older. There was a perceivable slump in Qui-Gon's shoulders, his fatigue also showing in the bow of his back. Even as Qui-Gon emerged reinvigorated through his meditation during the pause in the duel, Obi-Wan still wasn't confident that Qui-Gon could defeat Maul, with the novel revealing that he could only hope Qui-Gon held on as he watched the duel between Qui-Gon and Maul and waited to rejoin it himself. For these reasons, Obi-Wan was restless and impatient to help Qui-Gon and continue to battle Maul together. But in the final moments of the duel, we can again see Obi-Wan begin to be overwhelmed by panic and concern. As the duel neared its end, there was no question for Obi-Wan that Qui-Gon was getting tired, something that resulted from the fact that he was having to duel Maul by himself. Qui-Gon's lightsaber strikes were clearly diminishing in strength and power, and as a consequence, Maul was again becoming the aggressor in the duel, likely indicating that Qui-Gon was approaching defeat given how badly Obi-Wan wanted to rejoin the duel at that moment. In the end, Qui-Gon of course would be defeated by Maul, with the evidence of Qui-Gon's exhaustion recognized by Obi-Wan ultimately being a precursor to the duel's end. Throughout the final moments of the duel, when Obi-Wan was separated from Qui-Gon and Maul, Obi-Wan saw a number of different signs that despite Qui-Gon's power and the fact that he was the greatest lightsaber duelist he'd ever seen, he wouldn't be able to defeat Maul by himself. Fearful for Qui-Gon, rather than confident and optimistic about his chances against the Sith Lord. Initially, Obi-Wan's conclusion was a result of Maul's abilities and his interpretation about how the duel was unfolding, but then became heavily influenced by what he recognized about Qui-Gon, ultimately resulting in Obi-Wan not wanting Qui-Gon to duel Maul alone, and wanting to rejoin the duel more than anything. The interesting aspect to Obi-Wan's perspective within the novelization is that we see within other sources from Legends that Darth Maul deliberately set out to utilize a strategy that made use of the fact that Qui-Gon would likely begin to tire as the duel went on. As explained within the Legends novel The Wrath of Darth Maul, the initial duel between Qui-Gon and Maul on Tatooine, although brief, was significantly important for Maul. During that duel, Maul recognized that Qui-Gon was able to anticipate his moves before they occurred. But eventually, as Maul increased the speed of his movements, he sensed something important, that Qui-Gon was getting tired. Maul was enraged by the fact that Qui-Gon had escaped on Tatooine. But after the duel, when he went to report the results of his mission directly to Darth Sidious, when Sidious asked his apprentice if he believed he could defeat Qui-Gon, Maul wasn't just confident that he could, but he was certain of it, telling Sidious that during the duel he felt Qui-Gon get tired, and therefore he could defeat him. Maul would recognize the same fact during his duel with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on Naboo. But importantly for our video here, the fact that Qui-Gon was clearly becoming exhausted attempting to duel Darth Maul by himself wasn't missed or ignored by his apprentice Obi-Wan. This combined with Maul's powerful lightsaber abilities caused Obi-Wan a significant amount of concern once he was forced to watch Qui-Gon duel the Sith Lord by himself. As revealed within the Episode 1 novelization, Obi-Wan wasn't confident Qui-Gon could defeat Maul by himself and was impatient in wanting to rejoin the duel, something he was unable to do before Qui-Gon was defeated by Maul. So there we have it, Obi-Wan's thoughts during the final moments of the Qui-Gon and Darth Maul duel in Episode 1. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me... For Qui-Gon.